why would I call this the year of actionable learning? Well, uh, up until January of this year, I would have, if we're talking about learning, work, many of the big changes that are going on, we would have said, one of the major technologies was, major drivers was technology, the robots and software thing. And then along came a virus. So in March, I wrote an article called The Great Reset. And I suggested that maybe it's likely, if we're going to go through sort of the similar ways that our lives have changed in previous resets, like the Great Recession, there would be three phases. There would be a sort of falling off the cliff phase, a sort of riffling along the bottom phase. The lights go on, the lights go off, constantly changing situation. And then there might be this sort of third phase, an opportunity for us to not just build back, but to build back better than we had before. So that's really where I'd like to focus. Is I know that Kyla had talked about leading through uncertainty, and I think this is really what our challenge and opportunity for the time is to focus on learning and impact, how we can build for this next phase going forward, and how we can think through what 2021 might represent for many people in terms of actionable learning. So I talk about three legs of the stool: mindset, skill set, and tool set. And I'd like to give you just a sort of framing maybe to think about what the difference between those is. And then I want to dive into each one of them and talk about how to make them as actionable as possible. So, and I'm going to start off with a story. I'm going to wave a magic wand, and suddenly you and I are standing at the bottom of a mountain. And I have given you all of the skill set for climbing a mountain. You've climbed a mountain a dozen times before. But you look up at the top of the mountain and you say, oh, that looks too cold. That looks too difficult. I'm not going to climb the mountain. So you have all of the skill set. You have all the tool set, none of the mindset. You're not going to climb the mountain. So I wave my magic wand again. And now, actually, I'm going to ask any of you in the audience, is anybody out there a parent? As you're watching this young woman climb, I'm sure you're wondering, where are that kid's parents? Well, actually, you know where the father is. The father is the one that is actually taking the video. Where's the mother? It all works out okay. Just take my word for it. It all works out okay. But basically, I wave my magic wand, and now you have none of the skill set or the tool set, but all of the mindset that you need. And you look up at the top of the mountain and you say, oh, how hard could that be? You take 1 step, 2 steps, you encounter problems, you solve those problems, and eventually you're standing at the top of the mountain looking down and saying, well, how hard could that be? So this is our challenge and opportunity in helping people to develop the mindset around lifelong learning. The skill set and the tool set is, if we can choose one, we're going to focus on mindset, but we want them also to be able to have the capacity, the skill set and the tool set. And I'll just tell you a quick story to illustrate this in the real world. So a woman that I know, she runs an ed tech startup, and her 15-year-old son had gotten a job offer at a local business. Shows up to the office manager the first day of summer, looking forward to his new job. And she says, oh, I'm sorry. The IT manager that you were going to work for, he quit. And so the young man is just crestfallen. He starts to walk away. And the office manager says, now, wait a minute. He was going to install this security software on all the PCs in this office. Can you do that? So the young man goes home. He looks on his digital distraction device. He reads the manual, he watches videos, and throughout the summer, he installs that software on every single one of the PCs in the office. But when he started, he had none of the skill set. He didn't even know the tool set. He had the mindset. He didn't say, I'm going to go get a 4-year IT degree. He just jumped in and started to solve it. And he solved it just in time and just in context. And this increasingly is going to be how all of us will learn, by developing the mindset and then the skill set just in time and just in context. And so I think this is our opportunity as we think about diving in. How can we help people to be able to develop each of these? How can we help them to figure out the ways that they can best mountain? And what you're going to find for any learner is that these are doors to enter. Some are going to enter because they have the mindset or can develop what we often talk about as a growth mindset from the work of Carol Dweck. Some are going to enter through skill set, and some are going to enter through tool set. And we'll talk about how we can do each of these. So first, let's talk about mindset. What we've found through literally 40 years of working with people going through career change, deciding how to change their lives, is that over and over again, there's many, many things that drive people, the particular skills, particular problems that they like to solve, and so on. But we've found is that one of the best ways to develop a mindset that is sustainable is to have a North Star, something that drives us, something that is a hunger, is a curiosity, is a need, is a desire to be able to solve certain kinds of problems. Now, I know Dr. Bolles was talking about an ecosystem mindset. That sort of speaks to what's the problem that you're trying to solve? How do you understand the problems that you're trying to solve? What's the difference that you want to create? But across the board, what we're looking for is how we help people to be able to develop the mindset around a North Star. What is it that they feel drives their purpose? Now, one of the things that we've found is that the path to purpose for each person is different. There's actually a spectrum of purpose from something, topics, issues, problems that aren't all that interesting to some people, all the way through to if they dive in as they go along, they get more and more involved. It's something that turns from a curiosity into a fascination, into a subject they love, into a hobby, maybe even the work, what they feel is important work to be done. And then they keep on going, and eventually they find that it's their passion or it's their reason for being here on the planet. This is a journey for each of us. And for you, as those who enable the learning journeys of others, it's important to help people to figure out what is that North Star? How do they go down that path of determining where they are in the spectrum of purpose? Now, there's no single purpose for each of us here on the planet. There's lots of different things that give us meaning, lots of different values that actually make us feel like these are the reasons why we're here on the earth, the things that we want to do, the kinds of problems that we most want to solve. There's no one answer, but because it's a journey, it's important that people learn how to follow that process, how they can continually dive in on understanding more about themselves and the kinds of purpose that they want to have on the planet. So that's really the major insight for mindset, is to help people to develop that North Star, no matter what it is that drives them. But it's important also to be thinking about, for some, well, they don't think in terms of purpose. That is, that's too big an issue. They don't think of themselves as wanting to actually dive in on understanding what their purpose is. Instead, others feel that they have a skill set. They have certain skills that they want to use or certain problems that they want to solve. Now, it's great that Olivier was talking about problem solving as something you never maybe were trained to actually do, because we've been talking about this as the reason why we work for decades. Work, if you really were to distill it down to its simplest, work is nothing but our human skills applied to problems. That's kind of it. There's a whole bunch of problems that we are sort of optimized to solve. But the challenge for each of us as individuals is that we don't actually, in many cases, know about our own skills. We don't understand what it is, the kinds of problems that we're best optimized to solve. I got things dropping around me here. The kinds of problems that we're best optimized to solve. We're kind of like icebergs. And there's cognitive reasons. There's actually aspects of our neuroscience as to why this is true, why we have skills that we actually are blind to ourselves. But I think of it kind of like an iceberg. There's a small amount of our skills that we actually can see ourselves able to do, but there's a whole bunch of capacity, human potential that is below the waterline, that is we're blind to. And in many cases, others can see more than we can see. And so this is one of the challenges and opportunities for us then to help people who want to come in through the skill set door, to help them to understand their own human skills, to be able to continually inventory them, to be able to determine their best loved skills and the skills that they're best at. That's sort of the intersection that we call a superpower. And this is also an opportunity in the enterprise as you are helping people within organizations to be able to understand what the entire skill set is of all the people, all the humans that perform the work of the organization. That also is an iceberg. You have a huge amount of the skill set and capacity, the human potential of all the people inside the organization that most organizations are blind to as well. And so that potential is increasingly important for us to focus on and helping people to be able to understand how they can develop it and the kinds of problems that they most want to solve. That's actually another way to think about it. If it's human skills applied to problems, what are the problems that you most love to solve? And there's actually two kinds of problems, especially when we talk about purpose. They're the problems that you choose, the problems that you love to solve, but there are also problems that choose you. There's a lot of problems in the world. Somebody didn't choose to be born a refugee. Somebody didn't choose to be born in an inner city. They didn't choose to be born with a physical handicap. Those are problems that choose them. And it increasingly, as we're helping people to figure out the kinds of problems that they want to solve, and they're thinking about the purpose that they want to have in life, the intersection of those is how you help others who have problems that chose them. That is an opportunity for each of us in helping to develop the skill set. Well, it turns out as we look at skill set, and I know that especially Ulrich was talking about skills in the context of learning, I tend to point to 4 transferable skills, skills usable in a range of different situations, which we often call soft skills, that I suggest we think of helping people to be able to develop. So this is the actionable set of skills that I would over and over again suggest to index on. We need to help people to learn to become problem solvers who are agile, creative, and with empathy. Now, why these 4? Well, problem solvers, because that's why we're sort of hired to do work, and why we hire other people to do work is to solve problems. Now, in every organization, there's 1 or 2 people who think it's their job to create problems, and you know exactly who that is in your organization. But for the most part, we're hired to solve problems. Now, agile, well, that's necessary because, as I think Kyla and others have pointed out, we're in a world of disruptive change. And so we need to be continually agile, have the agency to continue to solve new problems, not just the problems of today, the problems of tomorrow. How will we do that? Well, we've talked about using the tool set of things like design thinking. We have to be creative because that's one of the things that is going to keep us ahead of robots and software as more and more tasks get automated. And then finally, with empathy, why would we say that sort of maybe doesn't fit the other 3? Well, actually, this is another completely uniquely human skill. And so if you think about having the skill set, the ideal skill set for continually solving the problems of today and tomorrow, these skills all work together. And if you want an easy way to remember them in English, it actually spells PACE. I talk a lot about the PACE and the spread of change. And so problem solvers who are agile, creative, and with empathy, these are the skills that we see over and over again, help people to be able to solve some of the most critical challenges, especially problems that they've never encountered before, which is increasingly going to be the work of today and tomorrow. So that's really sort of the dive in on mindset and skill set. What about tool set? Now, just as we were talking about climbing the mountain and the need for this balance of mindset and skill set, well, it turns out when you're climbing a mountain, there are definitely some challenges you encounter that without the right tool set, you're not gonna reach the top. You reach an ice wall, or you have some really big chasm that you need to leap across. If you don't have the right tool set, it almost doesn't matter how good your mindset or skill set is. You kind of have to have the right tool set. So I know that Lana was talking about a digital tool set. Each of the tool sets that we talk about, whether it's agile process, whether it's design thinking, whether it's leveraging digital technologies to be able to solve complex problems, whether it's using those technologies to help us to collaborate between our human skills more effectively, each of them essentially functions best in a context. And I'll tell you what we've found over and over again, especially as we help people to be thinking about the ways that they're continually solving the problems of today and tomorrow and the tools that they use. And I can sum it up in 2 very simple aspects: big vision, small steps. My friend John Hagel, formerly of Deloitte and McKinsey, he actually has this process he calls zoom in, zoom out. And this works very, very well. The zoom out is, what's the big thing that you're trying to solve? What's the big problem? And this works very well for teams. What is the overall issue or challenge that we are trying to figure out? And then how do we break down that process into a small number of steps and take the first step, take the first action? This is absolutely critical over and over again. And I don't care whether it's a massive world problem that you're focused on or a small problem for a customer. It's critical to be able to break it down to a series of steps and be able to take action on those steps as quickly as possible. This is where we find people going on learning journeys often sort of crater. They run into these barriers because they haven't understood enough of what the big vision, the big thing that they're trying to solve is, but haven't broken it down into the small steps that they can take to move forward. And this is true when you're trying to make big change in your own lives, when you're trying to develop new habits. It's critical to be able to continually break it down into those actionable steps and then to continually be aligned as you go through those steps with those that you're collaborating with others in your team. It's a continuous process of everybody moving forward in each of their own work and then using the tool set of alignment to continually ensure that they stay in step. So we've sort of talked through the three major characteristics of mindset, and that's obviously having a North Star, of skill set, and that's pace, if we're going to pick just 4 skills that we need to develop. And then it's also that sort of the big vision, small steps of the tool set, how tools can help us to continually have a big process or a deliverable that we're trying to achieve, but also take the small steps to be able to achieve them. And so here, I think, is the framework for you, each of us, as we're trying to help others to become lifelong learners, is these are doorways to enter. So, but I want to offer one other perspective, I guess. I want to sort of shift the landscape a little bit. Now that we've talked about these 3 doorways, I think there's actually a 4th door to enter. There's a 4th way to be thinking about this. I talked about mechanically that work was essentially our human skills applied to problems. But actually, spiritually, work is something that's very, very different. Work is about channeling human energy to create value. An organization, your organization, is a platform for channeling human energy to create value for customers and other stakeholders. Your work as a person helping people to learn and develop, you are helping people to channel their human energies and to maximize their human potential. As far as I'm concerned, that is an incredibly valuable mindset and skill set for you too. And so this is actually a huge opportunity, I think, for each of us, is that every once in a while is to step back and be thinking about, in your organization, all the capacity, all the mindsets, all the skill sets, the ways you're using tool sets to enable them. You are channeling human energy to be able to create value for customers and other stakeholders. As far as I'm concerned, that's a sacred task. You have one of the most important roles it's possible to have in helping humans to be able to achieve their potential. And if they can achieve that potential, if they can understand all that is there in the iceberg, all that is theirs to contribute, and they can contribute that in the context of the organization, what you have done is you have unleashed exponential capacity. You have actually helped to create a new skill set to be able to help people not just solve the problems of today, but of tomorrow, and to be able to do that on an ongoing basis. Now, I know Lisa K. Solomon, who's an old friend of mine too, who talked about the full stack of the model of learning within the organization. If you think of that as part of the tool set to enable all this, what you've done is you're starting to build that framework for being able to maximize the capacity of all the people within the organization. And I think that is a tremendous vision for the future. So I'm going to wrap up, and then maybe Mariam, I can talk about some of the questions that folks have submitted. But since your work is channeling human energy, I think this is one way to be thinking about the Great Reset that we've just gone through. The Great Reset is a start date. That's one way to think about the year that we have just been through. We've gone through this reset, not just each of us individually, but as humanity. When we look into each other's homes, when we're on Zoom calls, we are sharing a common experience that half the people on the planet are all going through simultaneously. There's never been any other time in human history when that's true. That is what connects us. This lived experience of each of us as humans. We have a start date. That's the year 2020. Now, going into 2021, let's make that the year of actionable learning. Good luck.